Hello, everyone. I am here today with T-shirt the Historian, who has a geek YouTube channel where he talks about geek stuff with a lot of his friends. How you doing?
Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land. Yeah, it's your T-shirted historian.
I see you turn on your host voice. We're talking before; it didn't sound like that. You have like this more ASMR voice now.
Why? Thank you.
Yeah. So, what have you been up to? How is the channel going?
Well, we did not hit monetization this year. We didn't get 1,000 subs. We are getting close to the right number of watch hours, but not 1,000 subs yet. We're creeping up on 500 though, so that's not too bad, I guess.
So, what's the minimum now on YouTube?
You got to have 1,000, and I think like 40,000 watch hours or 4,000 watch hours or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the watch hours is. The watch hours doesn't matter because we're almost to the right number of watch hours. It's just
Really?
I just can't get the number of subs.
Oh, okay.
So, but that's okay. The subs I do have, they've been there pretty consistently, and I've gotten up to 20 people per show, so that's not too bad.
When you say 20 people, do you mean watching live or do you mean doing the show with you?
No, I mean 20 people watching live.
Okay.
I can only have 10 panelists on at a time, but that's still a lot of people.
Yeah, I was thinking that like I have trouble not interrupting my guests on a one-on-one. I can only imagine in a group of 10 people because it's a very geeky thing, right? Like, the geeks around the table, they start interrupting each other when they disagree. And so I think it
Mm-hmm.
requires a certain amount of willpower to let someone like express themselves fully when you're like, but that's I don't agree with that. when it's a geeky matter, I don't know what it is.
We have to be really nice to each other because otherwise it doesn't work so well.
Yeah, so would you say in your show, and I have watched some episodes, but I'm not gonna pretend I have the time to watch it religiously.
What? Oh,
it's been a while actually. I'll be honest. But how many episodes of my show have you watched, T-shirted?
I've seen about 5 or 6 now, actually.
Of the talk show, really?
Yeah, mostly the Castles and Crusades ones. Although, we did do the comedy one where you did the all the different characters, the D&D game.
Oh, that's in the okay. So I do have another channel that's Bruno's Geek Reviews.
Mm-hmm.
So and yeah, I did Bruno's Geek Reviews. I do some stuff about geek stuff and all that. And yeah, I did a sketch about D&D in 2021. That was the previous year, where I played different characters and
that was hilarious. That was absolutely hilarious. We loved it.
Thank you. Yeah, that one got quite a decent amount of views for a small channel. Because Bruno's Geek Reviews is a small channel, and I mean this one too at the moment. But yeah, that got a decent amount of views. I'm guessing somewhere in a Discord or thread shared it, and it was it was just some stuff I need to get off my chest at the state of D&D, I guess, in modern times. And I chose to take the path of comedy, and I'm just playing different characters. And there's a game master trying to run a game, and the players are getting offended for different reasons. And I try not to be crass, obviously, and anything like that. But I was just kind of pointing out how anything at this point can be misinterpreted if people are willing to misinterpret it, and like, so I was just having fun with it. And I think it's one of those things where there's different ways to channel things, right? And I think if you can laugh about things, that's good. And I did promise, so I was laughing kind of like at the newer players of D&D because I'm an old guy. And next, I promised to do the old school gamers next, but I actually haven't come up with a lot of ideas. I have to hold a mirror to myself and be honest, but at the same time, I don't want to do something that's not genuine just to be fair. So I'm waiting for the inspiration to hit me as to things that I can legitimately say, okay, this is a problem that's kind of like the old school players have this issue. And I'm starting to have some ideas, but I haven't gone around to it yet.
Most of the problem you have with old school players is they end up wanting to reminisce about other stuff that happened in other games, like up to 15 to 20 to 30 years ago.
Yeah, I actually don't have that issue. Like I don't. The thing is, right now, well, you mentioned Castles and Crusades, and for people who don't know, tabletop role playing games are about to get completely lost. Sorry. Uh, but the thing I like about Castles and Crusades is that it feels like an old school game in a sense of leaving room for the game master to have the game masters to have their to apply kind of like how they judgment, game master judgment, and how they think it would fit the campaign and coming up with rules on the spot if needed, but with this modern take of having like one specific way of doing things, like one universal mechanic which can apply to pretty much anything, so the game master can on the fly, even if there's no rules for jumping, like a game master can easily, okay, do a check, and this, this is how it would work. But it also allows to grab like rules from other versions of the game, and also it's not stuck in the past. That's what I like about Castles and Crusades. It's not a game that's just trying to replicate the past beyond the good aspects of the oral systems. I'd say, okay, this worked, let's grab this, and these newer things also have their positive aspects. So you kind of have this trust in the game master from the old games, which leads to good things. It's not too powerful. Characters are not too powerful, but also not too squishy. And at the same time, you have like some this sorry, this unified mechanic, which is a very modern concept. Back then, games had like 5 6 different subsystems for different things. Like swimming was not the same rule as, like climbing, and it was kind of like all over the place. You could tell people just came up with house rules on the spot and then put them in the book.
Yeah, and actually, we ran our first game of Amazing Adventures last night, which dovetails perfectly into Castles and Crusades. And there are some differences, but since it's basically the same system, there are some things we like about Amazing Adventures that I may just carry on into my Castles and Crusades games. The fate points in particular kind of were nice.
Yeah, I mean they do. I don't know if they're exactly the same, but a version of that is also in the Castle Keeper's Guide for
Mhm.
Castle and Crusades, and the there's a companion book to Amazing Adventures which I own, but it's not in my boxes now. And not because I don't like the book. I'm just going to be moving soon. But what's the name? Well, anyway,
The
companion or something.
companion.
Oh, okay, there you go. So it does give you advice on how to use the Amazing Adventures classes for Castles and Crusades.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's yeah. I like Amazing Adventures. I like Castles and Crusades. It's just for those who don't know, Castles and Crusades is kind of like a different version of Dungeons and Dragons. It's legal. It uses a license that the company that owns Dungeons and Dragons allows people to use. So they make sort of like a system very similar to D&D, but they do their own thing with it. And that would be kind of like for someone who doesn't know these things. I think that's a fairly simple way of explaining it, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Plus, they have a lot of stuff that is kind of that builds on it. Like they got the Powers book, which I need to get a print version of, and there's Star Siege, which they need to put out in print.
Yeah, although I will say that Star Siege, it's nice to have it all together, but a lot of what's in Star Siege, if you have the other Amazing Adventures book, you can kind of cobble together. The only thing I had trouble with is the gadgeteer. You have the companion book, which gives you the option of having a superpowered character using the gadgeteer as a basis, but then the book of powers gives you the alternative of, instead of replicating spells, you have specific powers for a specific point cost. But then you have to go, if you want to do that superpower character using that system, you have to go over 3 books, which is maddening. And it needs to just be, I understand maybe it was done to save space in the book of powers, but I don't know, like it needs to be all together at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree. Having a few less books would be nice, but the other thing is, Castles and Crusades is already like up to what, their fourth or
Hey,
fifth printing.
That's
Is
the
it
eighth.
eighth?
If that player's hand, that for the player's handbook, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the
yeah.
eighth printing. It's
And
and they're beautiful printings, like
they are.
high
The new
quality.
ones are really sweet. But Amazing Adventures, I think, is still just on their first one.
No, they have two.
Is it
Because
two? Okay.
in the first one, oh, now we're gonna lose people who don't know about these things. We're gonna go back to a more normal conversation about I probably still geeky, but maybe not like talking about rules from tabletop role games. But in the first version, Jason Vey, the guy who wrote Amazing Adventures, to make it more pulpy and heroic, the difficulty of actions was lower. It was like you had to hit 15, and now in the new one, the second printing, they brought it back to 18 and 12 to make it fit with the other Siege Engine games.
Hmm.
So initially it was like 15 and 12 for the first printing, which is still like an optional rule mentioned in the core book. I also have the second printing.
Nice.
Yeah. But anyway, okay, let's we're gonna I mean if
Let's pull people into something that we could talk about. Okay,
if this was my
so
Bruno's Geek Reviews channel, like we could go in detail on that. But for a talk show, we might already have lost a lot. Like
yeah.
whoever, oh, what's going on here? Like I don't understand what you're talking about. I'm gonna leave. Okay.
Okay.
What?
So so
Yes. Go
so
ahead.
who's your favorite MMA fighter and why is it Francis Ngannou?
You know what? I just love what he did. I just love that. If he, this is gonna sound so weird because I like to watch MMA, but if Francis Ngannou manages to leave the UFC, break out of that contract, and go do boxing, I'll be so happy for him.
You'd like to
Um,
see him fight Tyson Fury?
yes, because he'll make money, and because it'll weaken the UFC and Dana White when it comes to how they treat the fighters. Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's a chip in the armor. So when he won against um oh my god, I'm drawing a blank because now you see my brain is like very focused. Like if I'm talking about like geek stuff and now I have to search for MMA, like it's different parts of my brain. And I swear it's even like I almost have different attitudes when I'm in one hobby or the other. Um wow, Bon Gamin
Cyril
is his nickname.
Cyril Gane?
Thank you. Oh my god, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Dude. Yeah, so when he won against him, I was like, oh, this is amazing. This is just amazing because for those who don't know, like what happens is the UFC has tyrannical contracts, and fighters can never leave them. And normally, when a fighter is the champion, it always renews the contract, and they're often like crappy contracts, and fighters have a lot of
Mhm.
trouble getting out of those contracts. And if you're a champion, it renews it automatically normally, and then it's almost like the only way to get out is to lose. But if maybe on purpose, but if you lose, your value diminishes as a fighter. So it's just one of those things. And then I think what happened, and I haven't followed up on exactly. I think Ganu he's the first one to have a contract where there's a bit of after this amount of time he can just leave no matter what. And I think it's because of there's been some people suing the UFC. It might have been the MMA Fighters Association who did that because there's a few different groups going after UFC for just saying that the contracts are not fair to the point of not being legal, or that they have a monopsony on the market. And which, by the way, I had in another channel of mine, which this one is an abandoned channel now. It's Bruno's MMA show. I do have, I'll put in the links, but I also have a conversation with Rob Macy of the
Mhm.
Mixed Martial Arts Fighters Association. But anyway, someone through legal means they finally, Ngannou was like the first guy to be champion and have maybe a more fair contract to get out. Where it's I think how it works is like, look, past this timeline, you're free no matter what, despite the contract being renewed or whatever. After this amount of time, and now he won his last fight, so people are thinking that he's not going to fight again in the UFC. He's going to wait it out, be free of the contract, and go do something else. Or he's saying that he would stay with the UFC if they allow him to box as well, which would be the ideal scenario for him because I don't think Ngannou would be. I don't think he's gonna beat Tyson Fury. I don't think he'll be like the best boxer around. So for him to also remain in the UFC and continue to be the heavyweight champion there, and this is no disrespect to Ngannou, but different skill sets,
Right.
I think would be the best option for him. Um, but I wouldn't say he's my favorite fighter technique wise, but I really like the guy, and I really like his story, where he came from, the adversity he faced, because he came from
Cameroon.
yeah, Cameroon. Thank you again. I was
Uh-huh.
gonna draw a blank, and the guy was just had a really rough childhood, and so it's nice to see a good guy win for once.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's you know that's the funny thing is a lot of these fighters really like have a lot of attitude and stuff like that, and they come off like wrestling heels or bad guys and stuff like that in their press and everything, but most of them are actually really decent human beings for the most part. I mean, no matter what they appear to be like on the outside. Um,
Uh, it's 50-50, I think.
yeah, it's 50-50, I guess.
But of course there's some fighters who, I'm not gonna name names because these are like rumors that are online, but at the same time, if I'm not 100% sure of something, I don't want to like start repeating. But there's fighters who are known to be really nice guys who have a reputation for going really hard on their sparring partners.
mm-hmm.
It's kind of shitty, and in camp, and then again, you have other fighters that's kind of like, and some of them over time, the fakeness shines through. Like John Jones at the beginning was pretending to be like this Christian,
Yeah.
old style values kind of guy, good guy, and then turns out that allegedly he was beating up his wife who left him and stuff like that. Always getting into trouble, like hit and run of a pregnant woman when he was in a car, stuff like that. And then like so I think it's 50-50 because um it takes a certain kind of craziness to do that kind of job, I think, as a profession, and not everyone will channel it the same. Not everyone is there for the same reasons, right? um so but then again, what I wonder is like the ones who play heel, it's always kind of like the philosophical debate, like Kobe Covington. I don't know if you know that one.
I don't
Okay.
actually.
So the guy was gonna he had a wrestler centric fighting style. He was gonna get fired from the UFC even if he won, apparently. And he was fighting in Brazil, and he beat Damian Maia at that moment, who's a Brazilian fighter. And then he said some really awful stuff about Brazilian people, because he had been told, even if you win, we're not renewing you. You're a boring fighter. Apparently, that's what he'd been told. And he started acting like a heel. And then he spent a while trying to find what his gimmick was going to be. So he went to see one of the Avengers movies. He was posting spoilers on Twitter. So he was acting like a heel, and people were so angry at him that the UFC re-signed him. And then he went hardcore with the MAGA angle, like red hat
Uh,
and hanging out with the Trumps and everything, and but really playing it up, really playing it up, and offending people left and right, and then it becomes to a point where you wonder, okay, if this is a gimmick. I'm not just saying them like, I'm not getting political with it. It's not just, oh, I'm not saying just because he wore a MAGA hat, but he didn't say a lot of stuff. Um, and it's almost like, okay, well, I understand maybe he did the heel to not lose his job, but then if you keep doing it, even if it's not real, when does it become still your responsibility because you're behaving like that? Um, or maybe it's just like that. I don't know. Maybe he just
yeah, I have to be honest. I dropped out of a lot of the MMA scene after Pride FC shut down because the UFC fighters just never really captured my imagination as much
really.
as the Pride fighter. Yeah, because the Pride guys were, they were so crazy. Some of the matches and stuff they would come up with were so mismatched and so wild and stuff, and there was all the rumors of of yakuza,
Those were
ties
not
and all this
rumors.
other stuff.
That's been proven. That's not
Yeah,
even a rumor. Yeah.
yeah. Well, there you go then.
Yeah.
But hmm?
No, no, go
but
ahead.
what actually has been catching my attention here lately has been the kickboxing scene.
Have you been watching Glory?
Um, I like Glory because I like Rico Verhoeven a lot.
The guy who made Francis Ngannou look small. In
Yeah,
the
because
photo,
he's
I
six
was
foot
like,
five.
I had no idea Verhoeven was that big until I saw a photo of him next to Ngannou, and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, he's an
To the
inch
Terminator.
taller. He's an inch taller, but he's a little bit lighter. Well, no, actually, he's a little bit heavier, also.
Well, I
But
don't know, but I'm not
yeah,
sure. Maybe, probably,
yeah.
yeah, because he didn't look
Ver-
skinny next to Ngannou. So
Well, Verhoeven's weighed in at 262. Ngannou is 257.
yeah, and they're both cutting weight like crazy. One can imagine.
Hmm. But what's kind of weird is Ngannou has a longer reach. He's got like a 6 inch reach advantage on Rico
Oh,
because he's just got really long arms.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
and then you have like how people use the reach because you have some fighters that will reach them, but they don't, use it for shit. They get up close and you're like,
yeah,
why did you do that? Uh, instead of jabbing or something.
but that's one of the reasons why I like Rico because you watch him get in the ring and he is so evasive, and for a 6'5" man to be that evasive and that smooth with his transitions, with his punches and his kicks, is just, oh my god, it's like watching a musician playing an instrument or something. It's just wow.
The story is that he had like light heavyweight sparring partners or something, and they were
Oh
always going fast, so he kind of had to keep up, and because he can't just like knock them out, so he would try to keep up with their speed. And he just at first he was miserable, and then at some point he's like, "Oh, I'm getting used to it." Like he didn't realize he was getting used to it, or something like that.
well,
Um,
he supposedly he trains with Tyson Fury. So
oh, really? Oh, that's
suppose yes, yeah, that's what I've heard.
man. Imagine being in that room.
Hmm. You'd have to get good pretty quick.
Yeah. Do you think Fury is gonna fight Ngannou though? Like, do you think it's gonna happen?
I think if there's enough money, then sure. Because that's always what it gets down to. Is that's how you always get these crazy matches that shouldn't have happened. It's just whoever wants to make the most money and whoever wants to pay the most money. It's whenever Vegas or whoever's making the odds thinks they can make the most money on that fight. That's when it will happen because
Yeah.
they'll offer enough money. Somebody will say yes and get paid. Now, whether it is at the height of either of these guys' career, I don't think so. Because I
Okay.
mean, because it seems to me like it's more like an exhibition thing than an actual, serious contest. But
Yeah, they're supposed to. They were talking about doing a mixed rules fight or something, and I don't know what that means.
I don't know how that would
I
work.
think they'll probably do it in MMA gloves or something. But Fury doesn't strike me as someone who's fully dependent on the gloves to block to parry, so I don't think that changes much. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Although it's you've been in MMA long enough to know that there is a big difference between parrying somebody's punch and parrying a kick.
Yeah, but they wouldn't have kicks. It's kind of like mixed rules, but
Ah,
yeah, no, it wouldn't be like a kickboxing or MMA fight. It would be um, I'm not sure what it was again. Like maybe they can grab a little bit, or maybe kind of like similar to bare knuckle boxing. I'm not sure, but or maybe it's just the MMA gloves and in a cage or something. I think they're gonna make it like a little bit of a mixed rules, but it's mostly gonna be boxing.
mhm.
So I wouldn't give a chance to Ngannou, uh, except for a lucky shot, of course. But by the way, speaking of glory, the oh my god, okay, so Israel Adesanya, have you been following him in MMA?
Who?
Israel Adesanya. If you like kickboxers, he's like he used to be in Glory as well, and he's the middleweight champion of the UFC right now.
Oh wow. Okay. No, I haven't.
Okay, so Israel Adesanya is a really good kickboxer, and he went to the UFC, learned how to sprawl, and has been his only defeat is when he tried to go up to light heavyweight to be a double champion. It didn't work. But other than that, he's undefeated. Except in kickboxing, there's this Brazilian fighter who knocked him out, who's now in the UFC. And Saturday, Adesanya is defending his belt against Cannonier, another fighter. And in the same card, the guy who knocked out Adesanya in kickboxing in the past is one of the fighters in the same card now. So, and I'm forgetting his name because my brain just refuses to work tonight. And basically, what's going to happen is for sure they're setting up a rematch in MMA. Like the guy who knocked out Adesanya. Like they're saying, and it's really exciting. So if you like kickboxing, yeah, and you want to like keep up with MMA a bit, I suggest you keep up with that beef, that feud, because it's gonna be really cool.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah, they're like two high level kickboxers in MMA, so let's see what happens.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Like I'm sure they're
Uh,
going to make it happen. I'm sure.
yeah, I still like the Thai fighters too. Cyan Chai is
Oh my god,
still one of my favorites.
he's retiring. I heard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean he's he's getting old,
How old
but
is he?
still. Oh, geez. Golly, I'm not even sure. He's got to
He's in
be.
his
He's
40s,
got to
man.
be almost 50.
No way. No.
I think so. I think he's pretty old, man.
Let me
Let
check.
me.
Let me check.
He's 40. Okay, no, he's 41. He's 41.
Okay, he's not
Okay.
that old,
No, he's not that old. Yeah.
but he has a lot of fights. Like Thai fighters have like
Yeah.
ridiculous amount of
He
fights.
he has an insane number of fights, and he has fought all kinds of opponents, like tall, small, everything.
Yeah, he's
And he's
fought
just
with gloves, with wraps, only ropes or something.
yeah. He's fought over 350 fights, man.
Oh, you looked it up? Oh my god, that's
Yeah. Can
crazy.
you imagine?
No,
But
and the guy
but it's
like he moves so well too. It's not like he looks like he has trouble
mhm.
moving or anything. He's still
It's he's got that slippery movement like Lurdzilla.
like who?
And Lurdzilla, you never heard of Lurdzilla?
No.
He's another Thai fighter. He's really well known for all of his slippery dodges and parries and stuff. He's really slick.
Yeah, I haven't kept up with kickboxing that much. But oh, of course, Senchai. Yeah, of course I know them. And yeah, that guy was. But what's kind of interesting about him is he fights southpaw, but he's actually right-handed.
Hmm.
So some fighters prefer to have like the jab going. I guess they get used to it. And it's kind of weird because I think my left kick is harder because as a teenager I did taekwondo, and even though I that's not my style anymore, for some reason something feels natural with kicking with my left.
Hmm.
Which actually it's kind of funny because my leg kicks I throw from the front leg, just because of that. Like if I'm sparring and I want to kick someone's leg, I actually throw from the front leg without switching if it's a leg kick. And that's just because I don't know, like in taekwondo they make you go southpaw when you're right-handed.
It kind of makes sense. I mostly throw with my right. So
And you're orthodox or southpaw when you what's your stance?
right. I'm Orthodox.
Okay. And you what's your style again? You practice some sort of karate, right?
Well, but let's see. Golly, jeez. I'm not gonna say like I'm like super duper martial artist. It's gonna sound like I am, but I'm really not. I practiced taekwondo. I practiced Kyokushinkai. I
Hmm.
practiced Aikido. But most of what I do is
So I'm sorry. I'm such an asshole. I always chuckle when I hear Aikido.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's okay. It's okay because without Aikido, I would not have learned all the good fundamentals to do what my main style is, which is Shosho Ryu Aiki Bujitsu.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, I know it's I only know one guy in the world who ever taught it, and that was Sensei David Rutledge, and I don't even know if he's still alive anymore. I
I
don't
mean,
know. I've lost track of him, and I really miss him. But there's that, and of course, I do Japanese sword style.
yeah, I know. Yeah, I know that about you. It's that's really cool. At some point, I tried it for like a very short amount of time, but the school is really far away from where I was, and then I
Hmm.
really got into just like you know doing stuff with my hands. That
Hmm.
sounded wrong, but I mean like martial arts barehanded. Um,
No,
but yeah, I
I
tried it
get
for
it.
2 seconds. I tried it for 2 seconds, and it actually felt really weird. I don't know if you do it the same way, but the way that so when I hold, let's see. So let's say just the way I would always do it since I was a kid, like playing with stuff. So I would
Hmm.
always hold it like this. So here, kind of like this, because I'm right-handed. And then what they made me do when I went to do kendo is they made me grab here at the end and here, and understand that the idea is because I control from the tip of the pommel. So I grab here at the pommel, and then here, and they would, and so if I slash and I go like this, the idea is I'm, instead of doing the angle here, is I would use my right hand to do like this, but it felt really unnatural to me. So
Okay.
I was just really uncomfortable with it, which is maybe just getting used to it, you know.
Okay. Well, it's always right hand on the top and left hand on the bottom, and the idea
Oh,
is
interesting.
yeah, and the idea is your right hand is your control hand, your guide hand,
Yeah. So
because
you would teach it to me like this.
uh huh,
Oh my god,
and
yeah, because that
and
feels more natural to me.
yeah,
It feels
put
right.
yeah, hold it like that, and grip the base with your left.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, when you make a cut, pull with your left and guide
Yes,
with your right.
so that's what I always did. Just I never trained formally, but just what felt natural to me.
Hmm.
You know, like and well, now I don't. I have a wall here, and like I'm
Yeah.
like obviously this is just something I bought in a garage sale when I was in my early 20s. Just I had it for a
Hmm.
long time. It's not sharp. Well, I mean, I guess it is a little bit, but it's not.
It'll still kill.
Well, yes, anything can kill if you trust it hard enough. I don't know
Yeah.
why tonight I keep saying stuff that sounds wrong. You know, it's kind of funny we're talking about these things. Oh my god, let's see. I found this. I'm doing my boxes, and I haven't since the well, and of course, people each have their opinions on this, but I haven't trained since the pandemic started, and I just miss it though. And it's not a whatever, people can think whatever they want. Like if I was by myself, I would train, you know, but because I have a family and all that, I choose not to for the time being. But I found my old sparring gloves, and you know they're all scuffed. I mean, for the angle, and it
Yeah.
just made me feel like really sad that the world is how it is, and I choose, I could, but I choose not to train at the moment. But it's not an easy choice. Yeah, it's I miss it.
If it makes you feel any better, it's like I said, I've lost touch with Sensei. I don't know where he is or what's happened to him. And my sword instructor lives too far away to visit on a regular basis, so it's kind of like I'm so out of practice on it. But you know, every once in a while, I'll pick up a blade and go through basics with it, and just kind of try to remember how everything is supposed to feel. You know, and the crazy thing is, being here in Texas, there's no law against walking around with a sword strapped to your hip. So
Yeah, because it's not the most dangerous thing around.
no, because you got guys walking around with AR-15s on their backs and stuff like that, or 9mm on their hips and all that. So
See, I wouldn't be comfortable with that. I know, like, we're gonna go. I mean, I don't know how far we'll go into this conversation with this, but I don't. And this is the Canadian in me talking, I guess. But um, I guess one thing is to see someone with a handgun for self defense or something. But to see someone like I don't know, I go buy milk and this guy is just strapping like
to
whatever the
be
term is for these things, I don't know, but like just
AR-15,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. To be honest, I've never seen anybody walking around with an AR-15 over their shoulder or shotgun or anything else like that. Now, growing up, I would see guys with rifle racks in their pickup trucks, and they would have rifles in their pickups and stuff. But I don't see that much anymore. And occasionally, I'll still see somebody walking around with with an iron strapped on their hip. But it's not that common, even in Texas. So
I wonder, and this is gonna sound like a weird question, but do you? How do I ask this? Are there bar fights in Texas, or do people kind of like avoid that, knowing the other guy could be armed?
well, I'll be honest. I stay out of bars, but
But do you hear stories or?
I haven't heard of anything recently. But that doesn't mean anything, because it's not like I go listening for it. It's you know, I haven't seen a lot of people who go armed into a bar. Um, just because it seems like it would be really dangerous to do anyway. But I've heard stories of idiots who go into bars and and they're strapping on like the most ludicrous crap in the world, like big ass desert eagles and shit. And I'm just kind of like, why? You're just looking for an excuse to use that thing, aren't you?
Yeah, that would seem. I don't know. It feels like if your gun is a self defense gun, you can go with like I think more subtle options. I guess. Again, I'm not a no gun guy, but
Well, okay. There's two schools of thought
okay.
on that I'm aware of. The first one is if you conceal carry, then it's just kind of like out of sight, out of mind. I'm not making anybody nervous because nobody can see my gun. But at the same time, since everybody knows that it's a state where you can open carry or conceal carry, the possibility remains that, hey, should you be nice to somebody because they may have a gun concealed on their person? But the other thought is if you open carry, it acts as a deterrent, so people won't mess with you. So
Yeah, yeah. It's
I mean, it's like, okay, even if you get
uh,
angry at somebody, if you see them wearing an iron on their hip, are you likely to want to
oh hell no.
exactly? So it's
But yeah. But the thing is that I think it's one of those things where, in a way, I also think of escalation. Like
yeah,
I think I'm thinking of escalation, and so in a place like Canada, let's say there's two meatheads who are really, really dumb, really, really drunk. Um, unless they're complete maniacs. But if we just stay at dumb meathead and really drunk, I guess they have their fists. This is how they're going to express their toughness or something.
right.
Now imagine you're allowed to have well, I don't know, then again, no one wants to do jail time, and you can certainly end up with jail time with your fists, but no one thinks of it that way in the moment. um
You're less liable to kill somebody with your bare hands. I mean, it can happen, it has happened, but you're less likely to do it than if you are with a deadly weapon. So
yeah,
yeah,
I know that if someone was like, do you want to fight, blah blah blah, and like leaving me no kind of like no choice but to confront them, and I have to defend myself, but they're like in this vibe of you're not walking away, but they're still kind of giving you that weird choice of when to start. That happens sometimes. I know I would have the now that I'm older and wiser, I guess I would have the idea of moving it to an area that's kind of like with grass, not on concrete.
you don't always get your choice.
No, no, of course not. I mean, I know you don't. um, yeah, I've both made people falling on concrete. it's it's, uh,
I,
it's
I
unpleasant.
know Aikido is kind of silly, but I did used to practice my break falls on concrete every once in a while, just so I would remember. Just I was like, okay, this is gonna hurt more. So,
But this is okay. See, Aikido. How can I put this? First of all, no one's gonna dispute that if you learn Aikido, you're gonna learn how to break fall like a freaking pro.
oh yeah,
The only thing is maybe okay. Does that time spent on Aikido, is it worth having spent that time instead of, I don't know, judo? And this is like the debate, right? Like, because you would have learned how to break fall also in judo, and so I'm not saying that there's certain martial arts. I don't think the people wasted their time per se, or that they couldn't learn anything. Just when they keep it in this vacuum, right? They don't want to learn anything else. So, for example, I don't remember who told me this story, but there's someone who told me that they know this ex Aikido practitioner went to present jujitsu, and this guy does apparently something really weird where he will, if someone gets his back, he can still grab the other's wrist and like do, I don't know what, I just did this as if I knew what the move was, but I don't.
go
But they
kill.
just they just kind of like grab people's wrists and f them up, even if the person has their back, they're gonna like, you know. So it's interesting. So okay, so I think there's definitely things that work in Aikido, and then there's also but then you have to kind of like learn the other stuff to be able to apply what works, like, so if you've never really try your aikido against a boxer, you don't know how to apply your aikido really. And then of course some people have learned to apply it in different ways, but then it doesn't look like aikido anymore. So
Aikido
yeah.
Aikido really doesn't, and I'm probably going to make other Aikidoka pretty upset when I say this, but Aikido was never really meant to fight other martial arts. It really wasn't.
That's a fair
All
assessment.
all the techniques and things like that are pretty much designed to take, every man and be, more gentle about it and peaceful. Like an untrained person who throws a punch
Yeah, they
or something
fight
like
like a
that.
windmill. They like you
Yeah,
see people who don't know how to fight. They're gonna go like this, but not because of popular culture. We see more and more MMA, and it's like people now know even they if they suck at it, even if they're doing it wrong, like they're punching with they don't protect themselves or whatever, like they're still kind of like more and more, unless they get lost in it and then they start like doing whatever, but they kind of like have more notions of throwing a straight punch and all that. So it's kind of funny where I think a lot of martial arts that work less and less nowadays just because normal people know more and more about martial arts just by watching it,
right.
would have worked more back then when people were so untrained and that they would kind of punch like this, and then the aikido guys like, oh, finally this is perfect for me. But these
Exactly.
days even people who don't know how to fight still have this notion of like, oh, they practice in murder, they would throw a jab, and it's not really proper jab, and it sucks, and any boxer would piece them apart, but they don't do the windmill at least unless they're really lost into it, you know. So I think there's a lot of stuff like that, where yeah, a lot of styles of kung fu. No, you don't put that against Muay Thai, but um, if you go against a guy who doesn't know anything, then you might pull off some cool stuff. You know, it's just more and more people know about basics. They don't necessarily know how to apply it right, but they stop doing those like it's like they learn just enough to make certain stuff that in the past was like good enough, like maybe not good enough anymore. Does that make sense?
They know enough to be dangerous, but not enough to fight somebody for real. No.
Yeah, it's one of, I mean, because like for example, let's take a silly example, but like people who say like karate, where you go like this and then this, and you're not protecting your face, and but the thing is that imagine back then when someone comes at you like this, completely untrained, right? And you go like so the guy goes like this, gets blocked on one side, and then he's going around with the other one, but the karateka has already like gone boom in a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
So back then, that would seem like, holy crap, this guy's technique knows how to fight, like compared to people who haven't done anything. But in this day and age where boxing is so mainstream, MMA, all that, like the thing is that, mm, now I don't think it would, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe even back then, I don't know. Like, I think there's things that maybe in the past could do the job because people really, really didn't watch TV that much and stuff like that. And that's kind of where it came from. But now that people can see these moves, like there's a lot of
It's
people
more
who
exposed, and more people have seen it, so more people will try it just because
they'll
they've seen
absorb
it.
something of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and I'll be honest, it's like at one point I did try to go back to Aikido after learning jujitsu, and I learned Japanese jujitsu, not Brazilian, so we didn't go lay down on the floor and get in the guard and all that stuff. But I got back into Aikido, and I'm working out with the other guy, and he says, "Okay, throw a punch." Well, okay, jujitsu punch that I learned was to throw a short punch on the center line, like a non-committed quick punch to
Yeah.
the chin. And he said that's a good punch. He says that's a really good punch. He says, but we need you to throw this other kind of punch for this technique to work. And I'm like, that's the inherent problem with
Yeah.
Aikido. It's kind of like it works. If everything is perfect, it works.
Yeah.
If anything is different, you better learn to get good really quick
Yeah. And,
and
and the thing,
adapt.
yeah. And the thing that people need to understand is some people, when they want to learn self-defense or get into martial arts, like they come at it wrong. Like they want to have an answer for this move, an answer for this move, for this move.
Yeah.
So, for example, knife defense. which I'm not an expert in, but I will still, with some confidence, talk about this aspect of it. They think that, oh, if it comes from here, then I'm gonna do this move. From here, I'll do this other move, and but the reality is that it's not gonna happen like that.
Nope.
And it's gonna like come like the guy might do this or this or this or like whatever. Like he might just slash blindly. So it's not gonna be like this. Oh, this angle is this one. You don't have time to think like that. However, if you learn a concept and you learn how to physically you learn it mentally and physically. So in practice with resistance. And so, for example, the way I learned knife defense is you go like this. You keep you're on this side because if you get cut here, you can't close your hands anymore. And you try to grab the wrist at the right moment. Like you try to keep the distance, or you kick away, and then when you're ready, you grab the wrist. It doesn't matter what angle. It's okay. Now I go for it. Bam. Like I learn to avoid it, and then go for it, and then we're fighting for it, and then it's grappling. Except maybe the focus is on the knife at first. It's not on the normal focus on grappling. Um, so this, and of course, I'm pretty sure I would get messed up. I would get all cut up, and so I don't think it would go perfectly. But my point is that if you learn something that you can just, it's a concept you can apply and adapt it. It can adapt on the fly. Like it's not, oh, this is not the right angle. Oh, is this going to be the angle? I'm going to go here, but then it goes underneath. It does, you can't like, it's not like a game of cards where you get to think of what your next move is and counter to this move. So yeah, so that's why it doesn't make sense when like if someone tells you, okay, we're going to practice a bit of defense. Yes, sometimes you will at the very, very beginning, maybe like do some very specific things to defend, but then overall, practicing defense should just be defend yourself, and your person's gonna attack you gently so you can defend yourself, but it's not gonna be like always the same move.
Right.
Uh, like for example, like if you're defending punches, like I don't know, like if you're let's say like you're doing kickboxing, like you cannot like go like this, and like it doesn't matter that the punch comes from here, like your hands are where they should be, and you move them instinctively, but you're not like
Yeah.
depending on the
It's
exact punch to and then ignoring
right.
the one is coming. Anyway.
No, I know, and it's kind of funny you'd say that. You know, obviously I love fighting games, and I've seen some of the newer ones.
Yeah.
That are more 3D, realistically modeled, and all that, and they look sweet and all this other stuff. The guys look very realistic and all that, but even still, it's like in reality, you see those kind of fights, and then you see like an MMA fight, and it's like those moves in those games look picture perfect. Picture perfect block, picture perfect counter, picture perfect defense, offense, kick, everything else. Just always picture perfect. In reality, fights are messy. It's you're not gonna get your hands in the right place every single time. You're not gonna throw your hip every single time, or if you do, it's not always gonna land perfectly every time, because people move. People react, and not everybody reacts the same way.
And
And
this is where the having a core concept and adapting to it, like if you miss but you understand, how can I put this? Anyway, I interrupted you, sorry, but this is where it comes into. You have to have the knowledge of how things work. It's not
yeah,
this is the move to counter this. Is I understand how the human body works, understand how attacks work, and I can adapt on the fly. And if I don't get what I wanted, I have this other option.
yeah,
Not
you
because
can't.
it's a chess game in that sense, but because you just understand it. Yes.
Yeah, it's you're not going to have a solution to every single attack that comes in, because not everybody's built the same, not everybody is the same height, the same weight, the same movement,
Yeah.
or even the same length of arm or leg.
Mhm.
So you can't sit there and train static against even the same person all the time and expect everything's going to come out the same all the time. It's just you just gotta work on what works for you, and make that your defense and your offense. and just do it the best you can, because there's not going to be an answer to every single technique, and it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, I'll be honest. A lot of what I do in jiu-jitsu, since it's small circle, the style I use is small circle. It would almost be considered dirty fighting by MMA fighters and stuff like that, because if we go to grab and stuff like that, I'm more than likely going to grab your fingers and I'm going to break them, and that's something you don't do in an MMA match. So, you know.
But and this okay, this is my counter, and I don't dispute it. Like rubbing a finger is for sure. I just want to play devil's advocate a little bit. However, have you ever actually broken a finger? I
I've
know you're
jammed
just
them.
practicing. I'm just asking.
Well, obviously, I've never broken anybody else's finger,
Okay.
but I realize how you can do it. I mean, I know how much pressure you have to apply and which force and how it works. I mean, joints, for the most part, only bend one direction. I mean, yeah, you may get
Yes.
lucky and find that one person who can bend and flex their fingers, like the opposite direction up to a certain degree, but everybody still has a limit point,
Yeah.
and it's just a matter of taking, a finger, a wrist, or a thumb past it.
I will, however, be the devil's advocate a little bit too. Counter argue a little bit. Not, but obviously, if you can break your opponent's finger, that's awesome. But I want to say that, and I'm not saying you said that. I'm not saying you said that, but it kind of brings up this thought in me where there's a lot of people out there who think, oh, we do these things, they're not allowed MMA, therefore I'm more dangerous. And I'm like, well, no, you're not, because first of all, the things that you think would end a fight wouldn't necessarily end a fight with adrenaline, with willingness, with like someone who's like really, really willing to do so. For example, like John Jones broke his toe, like the toe was completely upward,
Mm-hmm.
and he won a fight, and then he didn't even know. And then I think it was Joe Rogan who was like, "Oh, by the way, you broke your toe." And then he saw it, and once he realized the toe was broken, and he started like the pain was coming to him because now the fight was
Uh-huh.
over. Now the adrenaline was, and but in the fight he didn't even register that. So there's a few things. First of all, if you practice in theory but you haven't really applied, so for example, like when you make someone tap, like you have applied the pressure that got to that point. But if you just okay, this in theory would do this, like do you really know that a person would stop because of that? And
Well,
of
I
course, I'm,
mean,
I'm not saying break your training partner's fingers. That
yeah, you
not, but
it's, yeah, we can't go past a certain limit, otherwise we wouldn't have training partners anymore. But
exactly.
I'm 90 to 98% confident that if I punch somebody in the throat and break their windpipe, they're gonna notice.
But, but again,
Or
but again,
or
here's the
or
thing. How easy
if
is it
I
really?
smash somebody's kneecap, because kneecaps really don't move a whole bunch. That's gonna affect them pretty quickly.
Yes, but I don't. What I don't like is so okay. I'm going to be clear on my stance because I think I'm going around to make a point, but I also want to be clear on my stance. I think if you're in a street fight to defend yourself, dirty moves are definitely go for it. MMA has ironically, and again, John Jones have proven that eye pokes really do work really well.
Yes, they do.
And John Jones pretends that they're an accident, but no, they're not. And you flick and MMA ironically has proven that eye pokes work really well because when fighters are tired, they need a break. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, and there's like the 5 minute break
Yeah,
or
or
kicking
fish
the.
hooking somebody in the mouth and all that stuff. Yeah.
Well, that they can pretend it's an accident, so they don't do it as much. But so okay, yeah, for sure. What I don't like is when people depend on the dirty moves because I think the dirty moves can be useful, but I don't think they're what people think they are. So for example, in the UFC recently, I don't remember the names of the fighters. There are two women fighting, and one of them actually just was in a rear naked choke, and she went for the opponent's eye, which is really a dirty tactic in a sport. But the girl still got a choke, and she didn't like lose her eye or anything. So um, it's important to understand that these things can be useful, but dirty tricks are not this expedient way of like, oh yeah, with this I don't need to know the rest. That's not true. Like the kneecap, yeah, you might kick the guy in the kneecap. It might just like you were saying, like that perfect. everything aligned, the guy's not moving, and but in reality the guy will move. The angle for kneecap might not be what you think it is. If anything, sometimes like the person might turn where you're just kicking the front of the knee, and it's like it, you know, it might not even budge depending on the angle, or so you might bust a kneecap, or you might just kick him in the leg, which might still hurt, but
Well, yeah, I
yeah.
mean, okay, I think you're over examining it. Okay, I'm not saying that there
I
is a
just mean
one.
people shouldn't depend on that. Is what I mean. They should
Yeah,
also rely on training for uh,
right.
yeah.
I
That was no.
we
I'm not saying you said that, but
No,
it
no,
just
we agree. It's
yeah.
just yeah, there is no one hitter quitter move.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
the
those
same
don't
way. Like
exist.
you're not necessarily going to knock the guy out in one punch. It might
No,
happen, but you can't count on that. You know,
yeah, and that's the thing too. Is it's kind of like it's also kind of a measure of your seeing what your opponent's resolve is like too, because it's like, okay, if if I snap your fingers, is like, are you, and you realize that I've snapped your fingers, like, are you willing to continue to fight me? Is it that important that you continue to fight me, or is it maybe time your brain engages and go, maybe I should think about this again, because I just
hmm
but if it's
yeah,
if the guy's not stopping, then you don't stop either. you know don't just
yeah.
don't stop at fingers, don't stop at kneecaps, don't stop at the nose, don't stop at the throat. Just keep going, keep going until the opponent is loses the will to fight, or you know
I get
or
what you're saying.
can't fight anymore, just
Yeah.
because they're just too messed up.
See,
And
it's kind of funny that the whole finger thing to me. The way I see it, it's gonna sound weird, but if the person would stop at a broken finger, I probably don't need to break his finger. And if the person would continue with a broken finger, for me, a broken finger would be more of a strategy so he can't close his fist right. I wouldn't expect it to stop him. Does that make sense to you?
well, okay, the other thing though is the style of jiu-jitsu that we use. It's like it's not so much the breaking of the finger that's like incidental, that's just going to happen in the course of the move,
Oh, okay, okay, I understand.
but also the finger is also provides a really perfect handle
Okay, okay,
to execute more techniques, because it's like, okay, look, I've got your fingers, now I can move up to your elbow, now I can move up to your shoulder, I can move up to your neck. I
okay.
can I can
That gives me
I
context.
can get
Yes.
I can get where I need to get to do more damage, but I'm going to start there, and I'm going to and go from there,
Yeah.
because that's I mean, I might get your attention with the fingers, but by the time you notice the fingers, I may be already up to your elbow.
So they're leverage, and they get
Yeah.
broken along the way, but they're not the be all end all of the move. Okay.
Yeah, because if I grab a hold of your fingers, I'm not gonna let go.
Mhm.
I'm gonna hang on to those things, because while I'm holding on to those, I have control to some
But
degree.
but I think, and this is ironically from a video that Jesse Encamp, the karate nerd, went to see Steven Seagal, and Steven Seagal is kind of showing like how grabbing the fingers like this, and apparently in MMA you can't grab a single digit, but if you grab all the fingers together, it's apparently legal,
And it
and people
hurts.
don't do it. Yeah, and people don't do it. I don't know how. Maybe someone will start doing that, or maybe there's a reason why. I've never tried that. I've never finger stuff. I've never done finger stuff, which again sounds really wrong. But I
Well,
think I think I just don't
the,
like the idea of like the same way that I wouldn't like if someone goes like you throw a hook here and the guy's knocked out. Like I wouldn't like that
okay,
if you do this. So the
but
same way as like
okay,
you
but
hit
there's a,
here and
there's a
he's
difference.
neutralized. You know, like I never
There's a
like
difference in our approaches to training.
yeah.
You trained MMA, which is a sport.
Mm.
It's a okay.
I did combat sambo, so there's a lot of self defense in that too.
Okay, and Sambo has self defense too. Yeah, Sambo's a good martial art. But see, when I trained jujitsu, it wasn't with the ring in mind.
no, no, I know.
It was with survival in mind. So it's kind of like, you get in there and you have to fight me. It's like, I'm gonna fight you. Just there is no dirty moves when you're fighting to protect your life. There is absolutely nothing you can do that is considered dirty, because it's kind of like, it's whoever's going to walk away from that fight is the guy who's going to survive. And if that means, I have to do just every dirty trick in the book, or everything that people would consider dirty in order to win, I'm going to do it, because because I want to survive. I want to
If your
make it
life is in
another
danger,
day.
that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah.
But to be clear, I actually learned martial arts for self defense because what happened was I was often helping people and I decided I might as well learn how to how to fight because of that.
Mhm.
And I do know that the coach I had for combat sambo did know how to use like fingers and all that, because they even had he even had some aikido moves that he knew, but like we never learned aikido obviously, but some stuff he did like, which was like wrist and finger stuff, but
Right.
I just never got around to that myself, because at first it's kind of like, here are the essentials, you start with that, like, but so combat sambo has self-defense, has knife defense, stuff like that. It's so I never really approached martial arts with the sport aspect, even though I love MMA. um in fact, I would when I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I was often at a disadvantage because I would always start on my feet. Well, not always, but most of the time. And I would have this stance as if I was gonna fight with striking. So even though I'm right-handed, I kept my left hand in front, and I didn't do moves that wouldn't work if someone could punch me in the face.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, so we lost the recording for a moment there. Um, but yeah, I don't remember what sentence I was saying when the recording stopped. So,
I think it's all just basically
oh yeah,
it's.
I was when I was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I would kind of refuse to do stuff that was too sports centric, which
Oh
put
yeah.
me at a disadvantage, of course. And then I did some combat sambo, and I was really happy with that. And I also love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I guess it's one of those things where when you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, some classes will be very sports centric, other classes will be more self-defense, and it kind of depends which one
Well,
you get.
that's kind of what Sensei explained to me. He says the difference between the do and the jitsu. The do is the art, so it's a sport, it's an art, it's a recreational type thing. It's like, yeah, it's you could still seriously injure, you could kill somebody with it, but for the most part, it's not meant to be used that way. The jitsu, on the other hand, is the deadly art. That's the stuff that's designed to kill, incapacitate, maim, cripple for life, that sort of thing. Um, and it's like, when I was training with in sword, the grandmaster would he was not a fan of
Kendo?
kendo. Yeah, he
Yeah,
like
I was
yeah
just
he
about to ask you, like when you mentioned the
yeah
do and the jutsu, I wanted to ask you about that because I know
yeah he
experts say
made
Kendo has moves that would get you killed, actually, something like that.
yeah yeah he did not believe uh in the do practice. He believed in the jitsu practice. He said, this is all killing art stuff. This is all killing techniques. Everything we do is killing technique. It's not designed for sports. If you do the stops that you do in the do, then that would get you killed. So he didn't necessarily
Yeah, like
like kendo. He liked kenjutsu, and he made sure you knew kenjutsu, not kendo. And
now,
it's the same thing with our EI practice. We do EI jitsu, not EI do.
which EI, for those who don't know, is an art just about unsheathing and slashing as you take out the
Hmm.
sword. If I got it right, you can correct me. I'm not sure.
Nope, that's no. It's learning to draw your sword and kill with one stroke.
Yeah, which is in the Zatoichi movies. He's like a master of that. He's like a cane sword, and his whole thing is unsheathing and slashing as he does. Like that's his thing, Zatoichi. Um, I wanted to. So, for example, that I think, and let me know if what you think of that. Again, I know very little of swords, but one thing I don't like when I look at kendo is when they go like this, because I'm like the whole like you're not protecting yourself
Nope,
at all when you
that's
do this.
okay. Okay, that is
Maybe I'm
a
wrong.
decept. That's no, yeah, you are. That's a
Okay,
deceptively powerful stance. I've used it.
really? Okay.
Yeah, it is a deceptively powerful stance. It looks like you're wide open because you're inviting somebody to move in.
Hmm.
Um, it's not as defensive as you have your middle stance, but from that stance you can get a lot of your power stroke. And the
Power stroke.
trick is, well, no, the trick is like what you don't see happen is when you move in to strike with that, you're also moving offline. So
Okay.
basically, so if the opponent is committed and is coming in at you, you have stepped offline and are slashing down.
Okay. So yeah,
So
I'm gonna try not
yeah,
to look clumsy, but okay. So you move
yeah.
to the side, then come down. Okay.
Well, it's forward and to the side and down.
Okay, to not give him the space,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, because you're it's deceptive because you're also closing the distance a lot faster than they think. Because by the time their sword is coming at you, your hands are already in position for the kill. Because you're always cutting with the Monuchi, which is the top third of the blade. That is the sharpest, most lethal part of the blade, and that's where all your kills are coming from. Um,
Yeah, I saw a video of a Westerner in Japan who tried to slash bamboos with a katana, and he didn't know how to, and he broke the blade because he
it
didn't know like
happens.
how to use the slash. Yeah.
Yeah,
And the beast
because
went
yeah.
flying near people who were nearby.
Well, I mean, it's like it's not like swinging a baseball bat. It's
Yeah, that's I imagine. Yeah.
yeah, it's even though we call it cutting, it's really more akin to slicing
Hmm.
because you're basically you're
Not
slicing
an
with that
axe.
tip.
Yeah, it's not an axe, or even a medieval sword from
No.
a Western medieval sword that's kind of like made to chop. Yeah.
Hmm.
By
Yeah,
the way,
you're not
yeah.
hacking people with that thing. You're slicing.
Whereas with the European blades, I think it was more of a, except maybe for rapiers and such, but like if you're thinking like the medieval knights, that was really about bashing with the sword into the armors and all that.
Hmm.
Which again, very superficial understanding. I keep reiterating, I'm not an expert on that. I defer to you when it comes to weapons. Um, Speaking of swords and all that, I think you and I are waiting for the Henry Cavill reboot of Highlander, right? No,
You
you're not?
know. Well,
Oh, oh.
okay. No,
Yeah,
no, no, no,
okay.
no.
Okay, yeah,
It's
go
not.
ahead. Yeah.
Let me clarify.
Yes.
I am sure it is going to be Hollywood fantastic. It's probably going to have some really cool looking over the top sword fighting moves and everything else. But so here's the thing.
Okay.
I come from classical Musojiki Den Ryu sword school.
Okay.
Okay. That means what I would consider that would look good for a sword would be getting all your techniques down perfectly with no flourishes, no additions, nothing. In other words, you don't deviate
Hmm.
from the direct transmission style as taught. Whereas, like, if you saw a forms competition, you're seeing guys throw katanas up in the air and catch them from behind and
Yeah.
do all this crazy crap that you wouldn't actually do in a fight.
So
Um,
let
and
me. I know what you're talking about, and maybe I suck at showing it, but I think what you mean, and correct me if I suck at this, but is
uh,
that like, for example, I think a proper swordsman, something like that, would, if they want to slash on the side, it might go like this, where the blade is still in front of you. But in movies, they go like this. They go like really like far away to make it look cool. Is that what you
not
mean?
not so much that.
Okay.
I'm just doing. I mean, just doing stuff like okay. Imagine throwing flipping the sword around in your hand and stuff.
Yeah, like for example, instead of just
Yeah,
going like
like rolling.
this,
Yeah,
they go like this to strike.
yeah, yeah.
This is a flip from
That's
afar, or just instead
yeah,
of doing this, they go like this,
yeah.
which
See, that's a
you
roll.
get it knocked out of your hand while you do it.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, or you lose your hand.
yeah, because they.
Yeah, I mean, and it looks cool on film, but and it looks cool in kata competitions and stuff like that. But it's not genuine technique.
I guess the difference between the original Star Wars movies and the prequels is kind of like in the prequels they were like in front of each other, like flipping sideways when they're right there. But in the original movies, they kept their swords in front of them. I think it's kind of
Yeah.
what. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you watch the very first Star Wars film,
Hmm.
the fight between Darth Vader and Kenobi is kind of more like your classic, katana samurai fight.
Yeah.
Swords are kind of held up in the front. There's no crazy moves and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Then you go and you watch the prequels, and you got swords dancing all over the place. You got guys one-handing swords. You got guys flipping around with swords. And I'm just kind of like, that's just nuts. That would get you killed. It looks
Yeah.
cool though.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's the same when I watch a kung fu movie and I see things that like I'm not a fan of when I want to watch action movies. I'd rather watch something like John Wick, where the unarmed action makes sense to me.
Hmm.
Whereas like when I watch like kung fu movies, it's like they do things that wouldn't work, that wouldn't work, that wouldn't work, that
Nope.
all didn't work. Like it's like I can't turn it off. Like like they grab someone like this and the person can't move. I'm like, oh, you could totally just turn around. Like,
Or you watch the 115-pound woman somehow kicking the crap out of a 230-pound man, and I'm just kind of like, no.
but see, that depends. That depends on the movie because even one badass dude, like for example, grab Francis Ngannou, put him in a room with 20 people who are really determined to hurt him, who like really want to hurt him. Even if they're normal dudes, like I don't think Francis Ngannou can fight off 20 people really determined to hurt him, especially if they have weapons and such. So I can turn off that part of my brain because even a badass guy can't do that anyway.
Right.
So, for example, have you seen the movie? I think it's Malaysian. I'm not sure. The Night Comes for Us.
No,
Okay,
no.
so it's on Netflix. It's a really cool martial arts movie that's super bloody, super violent, but I have fun watching it. But I really need to turn my brain off because the guy would be dead 100 times over. So the fact that the size of the fighter doesn't, and if it's a guy or a woman, if the movie wants to be realistic, and then suddenly I see someone, and even if it's a man or woman, doesn't matter. If I see a normal dude against a gigantic man, and the way he defeats him is not sensical to me, if the movie was trying to be realistic, in that moment I will completely um, be like, "Oh, this sucks." But if the movie from the start is that, like even Jackie Chan, some people he beats in his movies, like, um, I'm okay with it because I have decided to turn my brain off in that sense. You know what I mean? So that,
Well,
yeah,
okay, okay. The film I've ever seen that was probably the closest to what it might actually look like if one guy had to fight a whole bunch of people.
Old Boy, is that the one?
No,
Oh, okay,
Crazy Samurai Musashi.
okay, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, you need to see that one. It's
Okay,
uh, it's in the U.S.
okay,
It's basically it's like an hour and a half of Musashi fighting off like 300 dudes. And I'm serious. Is like from the
no
moment
way.
moment the film starts, the fight never ends, and it's just one long continuous take.
But the cardio it would take is already unrealistic, I think.
Well, I mean, the actual
Unless he
battle,
takes breaks somehow, which if
uh,
it's a continuous take, I don't see how. But
you would have to watch it. You'd have
okay,
to watch it because
I definitely will. I'm sure it rocks. I'm sure it's cool.
he does kind of rest because they don't just charge at him all at once and stuff.
Okay.
Which is kind of unrealistic too. But
But there you go. See, so okay, as soon as I think the one movie, and even then I can spot the moments when it happens. I think the movie that looks the most like a real fight, where many people would just take advantage of it, is, have you seen Old Boy, the original from Korea?
yeah, I've got both
Okay,
of them, the new one and the old one.
I've never seen the remake. Just refused. But that hallway scene, which Daredevil has happily been influenced by,
And the
the
Punisher. Yeah.
yes, oh yeah, it's true, the prison scene. So in Old Boy, I think that's the closest, where because it's a hallway and there's two sides, but it's almost like two at a time at most. And they also stab him in the back, so it's not like he doesn't get hit. And I think Old Boy was the one, and even then I can spot flaws in it, but because what they did is what was smart is they kind of use like the realistic aspect of like at some point human beings don't want to get hurt, so they hesitate, and that's what allows him to mess up someone else while the others hesitate. But the flaws I found is like where, well, this person, were they that hurt by this, like, so anyway, that doesn't matter. But um even then,
Well,
you see, so this is why I can watch like and, I mean, Atomic Blonde actually, when I watched that movie, I realized that they were actually very smart about. She was always using something, like, so it was kind of like a middle ground, a happy middle ground between cinematic action, but she's also using her environment, objects, and stuff like that. So when I watch that movie, she's fighting bigger dudes, but she's not like she's often like grabbing a toaster and smashing in the face or stuff like that. So that was, I guess, a middle ground for people who are like in between, um, where they still need some realism, I guess. But I don't know, they're unrealistic anyway, I guess is what I'm saying. And then I can watch MMA for realism, you know.
Yeah. But that's part of the movie magic, is the fact that these guys never get tired. They never have to go and take a pee break and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's like you watch. The first thing I started thinking whenever I first saw the Raiders of the Lost Ark, the very first movie, is I started thinking, wow, like Indiana Jones has been going nonstop for the last 30, 45 minutes of the film. I'm kind of like, did he ever have to go poop?
Well, the funny,
when-
do you know the story about Raiders of the Lost Ark? Why he shoots the guy?
yeah, because he is suffering from dysentery at the time.
Yes.
So
It's in real life that led to an amazing movie moment where the swordsman is flipping the sword around and he just shoots him. It was supposed to be
because
an
he was
elaborate
supposed to
action.
fight him. He was supposed to have a big fight scene with him, and it's kind of like, he just, as
And
a
he just
joke, he
shoot him.
just pulled the gun out and shot him, and it's like everybody loved that take because the sword guy reacted.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So
But I will say that, and this is again, no matter if it's a man or a woman, what does get me out of the movie, even if I'm just spending my, if I'm, even if I'm like accepting it's a cinematic movie, its action is not realistic, is when the person is not convincing at doing the action, and that will take me out of it. So,
all the current Steven Seagal films for the last 20 years.
I don't watch them. I do watch
You
the red.
should.
I watch the red eye reviews of them. Red eye reviews.
Yes,
It's a funny YouTube channel.
they're
But
hilarious. Yeah.
yes, but for example, if we're not talking about like female action stars in the show The Mandalorian, when Gina Carano was there, what I appreciated was that I really did believe she could mess people up because she does mess people up. She knows how to. So it was like one of those things where it didn't look like a ballerina. It looked like she actually was hurting people, and she, even if it wasn't like I'm not saying she had like she was using her proper technique and all that, but she still looks like someone who can mess someone up, you know.
Yeah.
And then she got fired because of of her politics. But which, as much as I disagreed with her, I didn't care about, like it's like, whatever.
Yeah, she's not a very big woman, but most of those really good women who did MMA and all that really aren't all that big because women just don't tend to be all that big. I wouldn't want to get in a ring with her because at my age with my infirmities, she'd whoop the shit out of me. And I'm not even gonna lie.
She would mess me up.
But
yeah.
But just the fact that I'm as big as I am, if I do manage to land a couple of punches or something, it's gonna hurt. So,
well, I mean, this is between two men, but if we want to go about the realism of body difference, earlier I mentioned Israel Adesanya tried to capture two belts. He tried to go like heavyweight, and he was going against Jan Blachowicz, and everyone thought that the Polish, what was his nickname? I don't remember the nickname, but he was known for his Polish power, like he knocks people out, So everyone thought it was gonna be a thing where Adesanya is gonna, like, it was gonna be a striking match, and Adesanya was gonna try to piece him up from the outside, and if Blachowicz could land that one big punch, and everyone thought that was gonna be a fight. And then around the end, Blachowicz realized, or Blachowicz, I don't know, he realized he could just take him down and then just control time on the ground. It's not like he didn't finish Adesanya. He just held him down, so he had like control time, and he won the rounds that way at the end. So that was the one loss that Adesanya has. So it was simply the guy was just bigger. He just went on top of him.
yeah.
And of course, in some cases, the grappling skills can be so different that the smaller guy can still come out on top. But in this case, it's not like Adesanya is a great grappler, Like, I mean, maybe he is by normal standards, but not by professional fighter standards. So he was just stuck there, just because the guy was just bigger and was lying on top of him. That's it, So.
Well, I mean, it's like I've seen plenty of matches where smaller Thai men have fought bigger dudes, including Sanchai, and others, and they've taken them down.
Well, the
and it's
skill
just
also comes into it, of course.
yeah, the skill comes into play. The weight difference being what it is, it's more of a like a timing and a strategy type thing for them to win. But I have actually seen a smaller guy knock out a bigger guy because of it, because it's like basically the bigger guy knocks himself out just by
Walking to the punch.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's all part of technique and stuff too, though. It's like there's a lot of thought that goes into that before those guys get in the ring with those big dudes.
Of course.
Because like I watched the smaller guy, he would he would continuously execute this one move, trying to lure the other guy's stronger right hand punch out. So finally, after he got him to do it a few times and the guy would cooperate and throw that right hand punch, he got him to do it, and then he timed his kick at the exact same time, and just so the guy basically knocked himself out by running face first into the guy's kick.
But it needs
So
to be said, the size matters because the different when you see those small guys like mess up bigger fighters, it's often because the smaller guy has more skill. If the smaller guy goes against a bigger guy with the same amount of skill,
mhm.
the smaller guy is in trouble. You know, putting aside a lucky shot and stuff like that, or not lucky, but let's say the percentage of chances is always on the bigger guy if they have the same amount of skill. Um, and that's just
Yeah, and I
reality.
mean, and sometimes it's luck. I watched Gary Big Daddy Goodrich, who is a great big giant MMA fighter. Uh, he went up against Gilbert Ivel, who was a smaller man. Gilbert Ivel knocked him out in one kick.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah,
Yeah.
in sparring, I've never been rough in sparring. Well, at some point there was this one guy was starting to go a bit hard, so I started like leg kicking him really hard and that calmed him down. Which I like to go if someone starts like upping the intensity. I like to use leg kicks as kind of like a message because it's almost like if you hit someone in the head, they just get pumped up. But if you're in the context of a sparring, you leg kick them a bit harder, and they realize it's different from before, and they unless they're really like wanting to fight, like they kind of like it kind of like slows them down, and that makes them think. It's kind of psychological, I think. But anyway, beside the point, the hardest I've ever punched someone in the face slash head wasn't even intentional. It wasn't even done by me. I just like threw like this, like just this cross, and normal. Like I wasn't going hard. The other guy was going hard, but he was new. He wasn't experienced. He was like much bigger than me, so I was actually having trouble despite his lack of experience, just because his arms were so long. And the coach was like, "Oh, just boxing," because he was new, but boxing is not my forte. Like if I can kick, if I can grapple, like kickboxing is better if I can use the kicks. But I wasn't used to closing the distance just with fists, so I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Mm.
And what happened was the guy, through lack of experience, just like ducked for no good reason because I'm not like jabbing him from afar. I can't reach him, so I'm not sure why he ducked, but he did as I was throwing the. So he kind of like he ducked into my fist.
He ducked into your fist. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, make love, but
Yeah.
then he was nose bleeding, and it wasn't
Yeah.
even
Stuff
like,
like that happens.
yeah,
That's yeah. It's like Sensei used to tell me. It's like those guys who get lucky, they throw that Hail Mary punch, and it went and it knocks the other guy out because it's like they just blindly throw their punch out there and somehow it manages to connect because the other guy gets aggressive enough and he's throwing his move and he knocks himself out.
yeah, and for sure, and that's one thing. Recently, and we're almost 2 hours in, so we're gonna like we're
Okay,
gonna cut this soon, but um,
good. My
uh,
bladder's screaming at me.
you're not like Indiana Jones, but
Yeah, I'm not
just
Indiana Jones.
a quick side note, like was it a few months ago, this professional kickboxer, people had a lot of opinions online because this smaller guy in a nightclub, like the guy was being a douchebag or in a bar, he kind of like gesture like he was gonna attack him, and the big kickboxer just knocked him out. And people are like, "Oh, he's so much bigger. Why he do that?" But I think that people don't realize it doesn't matter that you're big. If someone, even if it's an untrained person, the trained fighter, the difference is that he gets to see it coming, he gets to do something about it first and all that. But if you let someone swing at you, it doesn't matter that they're not a professional fighter. They can still knock you out, even if you like. No, like someone much smaller can still click me on the chin or the temple, and I can go down for a count. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. So it was like just the people who don't know anything about fighting were like, oh, he shouldn't have hit him. He's much bigger. I'm like, that makes no sense if you know about fighting. That, oh, he's a trained fighter. The other guy wasn't. Well, the other guy, like, yeah, and I'm sure the other guy wasn't going to do anything, but he kind of did like this, like to act tough. You don't do that. You don't do that if you're
No.
not going to do something. So it was just one of those things where he just really, the guy paid for his arrogance. But anyway, and apparently he does that frequently, causes trouble around, and I don't remember the names involved, but anyway. So we ended up talking more about fighting martial arts and geek stuff. So that's interesting.
Well, I mean, I guess you could say fighting in martial arts is kind of geeky in its own way too, because
It
normal
is,
folks talk about football. So,
yeah, which has a lot more concussions, I think, than the martial arts we talked about.
and I guess it depends. I don't know. A lot of those
It's
guys
more
from
violent, right? Yeah, I think
well,
it's more violent football.
I don't know. A lot of those guys who come out of Pride aren't necessarily in the best shape anymore. But
But I think people, yeah, but that was like hard sparring in the gyms, the different mentality. People
true.
thought they were making their chin stronger by sparring hard, which is the opposite. So people know better now. Overall, there's still some gyms that don't understand that. Apparently, I don't. Again, I'm not much of a boxer, but apparently, a lot of boxing gyms still spar hard for no good reason. You know. Anyway, okay. So t-shirted. Look. Let's let's call it a night.
All
But
right.
where can people find you online?
Well, you can catch me at my YouTube channel. T-shirted historian. I don't have like a special link or anything like that. It's just just look up T-shirted historian in YouTube. I do the Week in Geek on Saturdays at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time every week, and during the summer I do Dungeons and Discussions at 9 a.m. on Tuesdays. So if you like talking about role playing game stuff, that's your show. If you want to talk general geek stuff about movies, video games and everything else like that, catch me at my weekend show.
And the Dungeons and Discussions, do you still do it with Grim Jim?
I do.
Yes.
I
So
do.
that's the previous guest on the show, James Isboro. So yeah, he does episodes. I've actually been a guest on Dungeons and Discussions one time to talk again
There you
about
go.
martial arts, but in the context of tabletop role playing games. Anyway, T-shirt, thank you very much for coming to my show,
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
and thank you everyone for watching.